Welcome to the Awakened Human Podcast, the place to be for highly progressive, yet extremely grounded intuitive guidance, energetic support, metaphysical tools, and higher consciousness for highly successful, ambitious, soul-centered visionaries and leaders like you who want to make a global impact and achieve your highest fulfillment by aligning with your soul's true divine agenda and your role in God's plan of lighted creation, and by utilizing your divine gifts, talents, and abilities from the higher realms. We do this by working with the non-physical realms of higher guidance, energy, intuition, and powerful metaphysical tools for healing and transformation. We understand that the real change and transformation that's being called for on planet Earth and in our own lives and our own businesses doesn't come from outside of us, but rather from within. And that the change that we desire to experience in our lives and in our world requires us to change from the inside. I'm your host, Lori Ann Spagna. I'm a best-selling author, spiritual catalyst, intuitive, energy worker, ascension guide, multidimensional channel, animal communicator, visionary, lightworker, and luminary. I have dedicated my entire professional life to helping thousands and thousands of humans and animals all over the world in service and contribution to the light, which is the expansion, the upliftment, the evolution of humanity, to awaken, to uplift, and to align with our true divine source, which exists within each and every one of us. It is my passion, joy, and purpose to share this information, energy, and consciousness with you. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing time with me. Let's get started. Well, hello and blessings, beloved. I believe I am recording. Welcome. Welcome to today's podcast and today's episode of the Awakened Elevated Human. How are ya? How you doing? As Joey likes to say in Friends, how you doing? I love that show. I know some people think it's crazy. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I can watch that show in the background when I'm working just for the fun, and I'll pick up on laughs because I don't have to follow the show. And it just makes me happy. How you doing? How you doing today? It's so great to be with you. Thank you for being here. So I'm really excited about today's episode. I have been planning it, and it has been being given to me, provided to me to share with you over the past close to month. If you did not listen to last week's episode, I highly, highly recommend you listen to that. It doesn't have to be in order, but it's connected to this episode, right? The two go hand in hand, and it was a good episode. If I do say so myself, I was pretty proud of the way it came out. I always tell my podcast editor, she doesn't really have to edit very much. She just has to make sure there's no noise in the background because truthfully, my stuff just flows, I think. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm my worst not critic because I'm not a critic of myself very much. I think I'm awesome. I love myself. You are too, by the way, right? Awesome. Okay. I hope you love yourself as much as I love myself. I'm getting better and better at it all the time. All right. So here's what today's topic is. It's you are never wrong. You are never wrong. You can never be wrong. I want to explain why this has been something I've been wanting to share for now over a month. So I was speaking with a friend of mine, a friend who I have known for quite a long time through a mentor that we both work with, and someone who I really love. Both of them I love and value and appreciate and respect. But I do know that when you're working with any kind of master, and I did mention this in last week's episode, it's easy to get triggered. It's easy to get triggered because that master in their own right has reached a level of learning, growth, knowing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a teacher, right? And I am a teacher and a catalyst for awakening. And I'm an indigo child. And we tend to have indigo children. If you're listening to me, chances are you're a member of the indigo family races. And the indigo family races are born teachers, healers, intuitives, naturals. We're at it for like most of our life in one way or another. And by the way, if you don't know what that is, you can get a free class on it from me, which you'll love. It's LoriSpagna.com/free gifts/starseed. There's a whole class and an ebook on who the indigo family tribes are and what we're here for, right? My role is to facilitate, for those beings, and to facilitate awakening and ascension and consciousness expansion and evolution, right? Through healing, through mentorship, through guidance, through channeling, through mediumship, through connecting with beings who have crossed over, transitioned, ascended masters, like all the beings in my collective, or in the collective that I'm part of, is a better way to say that. Animal communication, telepathy, etc. But regardless, so when you're working with someone who's achieved a level of mastery, which most people in the indigo family races have some degree of mastery in some area or another, or are developing their craft, their gifts in this lifetime and probably from other lifetimes as well, at some point you're going to get triggered, right? And this is just part of what happens, right? It's just part of it. And part of what happens when you get triggered is you're sort of finding a wrongness, right? Now, the wrongness, so-called wrongness, you're never wrong. What is wrongness? It's misalignment. You're not wrong. You're never wrong. You can't be wrong. Right. The game of right and wrong, when a person is playing in the game of right and wrong, they will feel that they've been made wrong. That's what happens because you're playing in the game of right and wrong. That's the game of duality. That's the old paradigm. So if you're getting triggered by someone, chances are somewhere where you believed or perceived yourself to be wrong or right is getting triggered. But really, all the trigger is a misalignment with source, right? With divine truth or some kind of divinity that is within you, accessible by you, and the trigger where you're made to feel, not by someone else, by your own self. A trigger, you feel something or sense something or perceive something through the lens of right or wrong, good or bad. And because that trigger has just been triggered energetically or mentally or emotionally or all three, or spiritually, energetically, or, on the causal plane, like a cause and effect kind of type of relationship, whatever it is, it brings about a kind of right or wrong energy. And this is what happened with a friend of mine, right? I somehow triggered her with something that I said as a healer in my mastery, something that I know to be true. I will explain this better as I go. Stay with me. And the friend got like triggered and believed I was making her wrong. I was making her wrong. I don't ever think of someone as wrong. It's not about right and wrong. It's about alignment with divine truth. Now, this doesn't mean everything I say is absolute truth. No, I'm just another human just like everybody else. But what it does mean, I'm trying to teach people right now how to work with a trigger when you feel that you've been made wrong. That's what's important in this message. If you feel that you've been made wrong, really all that is an area where you're misaligned with or from divine truth. Because you can never be wrong. You're not wrong. You just were playing in a game of right and wrong. And in the game of right and wrong, and good and bad, fact from fiction, lies from truth, we have been playing in that game as humans for, we don't even know how long, eternity, 25,000 years, maybe more, lifetime to lifetime, incarnation to incarnation, more or less, right? And in that game, you took on beliefs, belief systems, perspectives, ideologies, energies, frequencies, vibrations There's been all kinds of distortions in your energy field, manipulations, things that were done to you by another who used their free will to try to control you, dominate you, manipulate you in that game, which is an old paradigm that's coming to an end, right? And so through those distortions, and you had certain attitudes, and along that journey that we think is somewhere around 25,000 years to eternity, right? Along that journey, because of all those distortions and that density, which is heaviness, right? Density isn't always, it's a measurement of heaviness versus lightness. As you're coming into your own journey of a light enlightenment, reclaiming your divinity, reclaiming your eternal divine spark, source connection, reclaiming the light within and the divine truth from within, you have to undo all those distortions because free will. Go back to last week, right? Free will choice. You have to choose to realign energetically with divine source. So what's going to show you where you're out of alignment with source from all those eternal experiences, right? All those incarnations and lifetimes. And even if you don't believe in past or parallel lifetimes, which I don't know why you wouldn't believe in that if you're following me, like I teach about that stuff all the time. But even if you don't buy into that, okay, let's just count this lifetime. Just this lifetime. You were probably traumatized as a kid somewhere, especially if you're above 40. Most people who are at least 40 years of age, and certainly even people below that, no question, have carried some kind of major trauma from, well-meaning parents who carried traumas too. Like, I could do a whole podcast on this, but, really good parentings didn't start, like people didn't start really cultivating good parenting skills until, like maybe 20 years ago. Okay, maybe that's not entirely fair to say, but come on, that just wasn't something we were focused on. We were focused on survival, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. It wasn't until the 60s, at the earliest, I would say, that people started overall as a collective, as a culture, that our culture started even after during the 60s. It wasn't like that. It was the baby boomers, right? It was all about work. And then when we worked to become slaves, we started being like, oh, we need some work-life balance, right? Okay, I'm digressing. The point is, the purpose of the trigger is to show you where you're misaligned. Not that you're wrong. It's not that you're bad. It's not that you did something wrong. It's that your soul's agenda has an agenda to come into alignment with divine truth. You won't be triggered by something if you're not misaligned. You won't. If you're aligned with source, someone can say mean things to you and you'd be like, wow, that person's mean, but thank God it has nothing to do with me. That's who they are. Someone could say something to you that's insulting. You won't be triggered because you'll be like, wow, that says more about them than it does about me. You might say, why did that show up in my life? I guess I got to be a little more loving to myself so that doesn't keep showing up. Or I guess I just have to bless that person and, maybe we're not really aligned anymore. But you're not going to be triggered. Triggers happen because of misalignments, but they're not indicating that you're wrong. You're never wrong. You just were going through reality with a perspective or something in your energy field that was misaligned. Now, how does one know what's truth and what's not truth, right? When they get triggered, there's going to be an imbalance of some kind. A trigger is an emotional response that's usually like insult, upset, anger, irritation, irritability, frustration, or some of those primal responses when we have an immediate kind of knee-jerk reaction to something that doesn't overall feel, for the most part, positive, right? I'm going to do another episode on how to clear all that stuff really fast. But for now, just get it, right? Because a trigger doesn't make you wrong. Now, here's what's really important. When someone gets triggered by something, usually, if they don't recognize right off the bat, this is a trigger in me that I need to clear. Like, let me give an example. With this same friend, I think in the same conversation, I was speaking to her about someone who kind of wrote a nasty email to me, and I got triggered, and I was evaluating it with this friend. Like, oh, wow, I got triggered by this incredibly judgmental and insulting email. And I was trying to get to it. And I don't even remember what she said to me, but it was so helpful. I was like, oh, right. Like, it was the aha moment, like, that made me realize, that's where the perspective that I didn't have, that was what was missing, in a sense, that if I had that, I wouldn't have been triggered in the first place. But here's the thing about the whole trigger thing. And this is what a lot of people don't get. And if you don't get this, then please go back to the podcast episode I did right before this one, which was called There Are No Accidents, because these two go hand in hand. You see, one of the most challenging things, this is so challenging for everybody, is that we have to take 100% responsibility. I could do a whole another episode on this. 100% responsibility. In fact, I might just do that right after this as a dovetail to our emotions, for our thoughts, for our feelings, for our opinions, for our beliefs, for our belief systems, our perspectives, our attitudes, our responses, our overall energy, both conscious and unconscious. If we're not ready for that, if we don't do that, we will blame someone else. We will make them the culprit. We will say something to them like, what you said was insulting. You are responsible somehow. You meaning the other person. You hurt my feelings. You did this. You did that. You were wrong about what you said. So, for example, let's say I say to you, well, okay, you had a dis-ease in the body and you're looking for a solution, right? And I say, well, that dis-ease in the body is usually caused by something in the unconscious that is XYZ, thinking, feeling, believing this. And then the person, let's just say they may get triggered and be like, things just happen. Then it's some part of them that doesn't want to take responsibility for their own thoughts or their own feelings or their own emotions, potentially. Now, I'm not saying this is absolutely true across the board. I'm saying generally the trigger is saying, hey, there's a misalignment here, but only you can change your alignment by coming into some kind of greater truth, greater knowing, higher consciousness, or greater unity with your source. But it's up to you, person, to take responsibility for whatever the trigger is that is either somewhere, not only somewhere where you've been misaligned, but something related to the way you've been thinking or feeling, what you've been believing or perceiving, or your overall attitude that perhaps either in this lifetime or somewhere else, or if you don't want to go there, either consciously or unconsciously, you weren't recognizing or realizing that was in your field, your multidimensional field, meaning your mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual, karmic, dharmic path that your soul now wants to resolve so that you can come into greater alignment. The trigger is designed to help you to become more conscious, and you have to be willing to take responsibility, because nobody in this lifetime, or okay, that's not fair to say, but chances are nobody can get into your thoughts necessarily without your free will, either consciously or unconsciously, to take responsibility and change that to come into more alignment with source. And if you keep believing that things happen by accident, or that you're at the result of the physical world, it just happened to you, please, again, go back to last week and listen. Well, that's just a misalignment, because nothing's by accident. Again, we covered that last week. In other words, by taking responsibility, full and complete responsibility for your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own opinions, your own judgments, your own perspectives, your own attitudes. And this isn't easy. That's where you can start to come into the recognition, yeah, I'm not wrong. I just had a belief system that wasn't serving me in the best ways possible. Or I had an attitude that was somehow blocking me and I didn't even realize. Or, like, for example, I always talk about this, the attitude of skepticism and cynicism will block you every time from divine truth. It really does. It's not authentic inquiry. Help me to understand or to know. That's different from, I don't believe it, prove it. Now I've just put up a wall. I doubt that. I don't believe in that. Prove it to me. That'll never work, because that wall will block, right? So this is what I'm saying. That's just a misalignment. Is that person wrong for that? No, because somewhere in time and space, they learned skepticism or cynicism as a self-protection technique, as a tool for survival. Somewhere that served them. But as we grow and evolve and ascend, that is no longer going to serve them. It's going to keep them blocked until they recognize, that attitude, that way of thinking, it was blocking me. Same thing, like I said, with a dis-ease. If there's a dis-ease in the body, it's somewhere where there's an energy that's been somehow blocking them. What is that energy? Well, it's the coagulation of sometimes inertia, non-physical matter that has no rhyme or reason, but it's still energy. It still counts in the realms of infinite intelligence. Sometimes it's inertia, but sometimes it's a coagulation of thoughts, of beliefs, opinions, judgments, points of view, perspectives, ideologies, attitudes that we've had, or patterns, right? Structures. Or another part you can include in this coagulation could be some kind of what we would call samskara, right? And that's just a term in the ancient teachings for a deeply wounded pattern or a trauma that may be coagulated, that maybe we took on from either our family or our lineage or an important teacher in our life. I mean, I've been traumatized by some of the healers I worked with in the past and some of the teachers and even friends. I took on traumas and I'd have to clear those, right? So that can happen too. Regardless, it's me taking responsibility, 100% responsibility for what's within me that needs to be cleared, healed, resolved, so that I can come into alignment with my source, with the light that is within me, that is the divinity that is infinitely available to me, right? So you are never wrong. This is what I want to say. And I want to say something else along this, because not only are you never wrong, it's a really hard thing, especially when we do shadow work, right? Because shadow work is where we're looking at those parts of us that we are blindsided to, that we are unconscious of, so that we can clear, heal, or resolve them and be free and liberated from them. And if we're not willing to look at those parts, then we remain unconscious of them and they're affecting us unconsciously. But when those parts are looked at, it can seem like we're the bad guy or we're to blame. But we're not. We're not to blame. We've been living, I'm circling back to what I said earlier, in this infinite time-space reality as souls experiencing duality in the game of this like matrix of duality, this old paradigm of unconsciousness. And in that game, we adopted certain kinds of beliefs, belief patterns, etc. I've said them already, took them on as survival tools, as ways to function, as ways to be. They served us for a while, somehow, some way, or maybe they never did serve us, but we didn't somehow resolve them. And the soul agenda in this lifetime is likely to resolve them as a way of expanding, ascending, evolving, growing, and transforming. So a trigger will be inevitable if you're on the growth path. And if you're listening to me now, of course you are, or else you would be listening to me, right? If you're choosing to not go into a state of denial. A soul will be asked to address the same kind of issues if they're part of the agenda over and over again until they get them. The triggers are there to serve you, but you are not wrong. You are an ascending, awakening being who is being asked to look at those parts of yourself that you once played with or participated in or worked with in some way, shape, or form, or took on, and to reevaluate, is this truly serving me? Is this truly serving me in the best ways possible? And if it's causing some form of dis-ease or disharmony in a relationship, which can be triggered by something someone says or someone does, or just something in the external world, the trigger is designed to help you to come into greater union and alignment with your source. You're never wrong, and the person who triggered you or the situation is just the catalyst. That's why I often refer to myself as a catalyst more than a spiritual teacher, because I'm a catalyst for growth. And indigos are, right? We indigos are catalysts for growth and expansion. That's why we're here. So I hope this has been helpful, right? It's a kind of a two-part thing, well, three-part thing. You do have to recognize that it's not an accident. It's there to serve you, whatever's going on in your life. You have to take responsibility if you do want to move past triggers or limitations and come into greater union. And above all, you're never wrong. Now, I think I just want to add one last piece on this. In the Sacred Mentorship Program, where we're often, working with shadow aspects, it's always a fine line, because it's not easy to work with shadow aspects, right? I mean, you're revealing something that is not generally your most benevolent best. It's generally not the highest light that you are, the brilliance or the beauty. It's some kind of block or limitation or somewhat faulty thinking or program that's not serving you, or some kind of energetic structure or density. And a lot of this stuff really globs onto us, especially if it's part of the soul's agenda to really resolve it. So it's not always fun to look at that stuff. But when I'm helping my students and my clients in my programs with that, I oftentimes myself will try to overcompensate a little bit by reminding them, you're never wrong. You're not wrong. There's nothing bad about you. You're just coming into greater light. And that shadow stuff is the stuff that we're clearing and resolving. There is a very famous male teacher out there in the spiritual teachers realms who will say things like, what you're feeling, you're healing. And there was a while I believed that, but you're only healing it if you're letting it resolve. If you're triggered by something and then you kind of like attach to it or refuse to kind of like take responsibility for it, or you do some kind of spiritual bypassing, like, oh, I'm just feeling it and healing it. Like, to a certain degree, it's not always true. Shadow work is challenging work. And it does require you to take responsibility and say, this dark, black, heavy, dense, painful, triggery, upsetting type of thing, it's upsetting me and it's bothering me. Therefore, I'm the one who has to clear, heal, and resolve it in some way. I can't just pretend like, oh, it's going to go away. I'm feeling it. I'm healing it. No, it's there for a reason. The soul's agenda is to address it. Now, I'm not saying there's lots of things that you can just feel and heal and it's over. But those aren't the big things that really trigger you and deeply affect you, right? The things that sort of like really trigger you or deeply affect you or deeply upset you or cause some form of dis-ease, either in the body or in the emotional state or in the mental state, or form some form of upset in relational patterns or family dynamics, or whatever it is, like those things, you can't just feel them and heal them. The soul wants to resolve them. And there's some deeper work there, some kind of deeper gift. And the trigger is designed to help you to become conscious of it. And again, this is why you're never wrong. It's the deep work we're here to do. Doesn't make you wrong, doesn't make you bad. It's just a gift of consciousness, that how consciousness works, how this incredibly divinely intelligent, organized universe is serving us from divine, with and through and in and around divine intelligences and everything, how it's working for us on our behalf to assist us in resolving those issues that are keeping us in the states, varying states of duality and our own sort of pain and suffering on the journey. Because duality can continue to exist and will continue to exist, but all the pain and suffering that we've been going through for eons of time is being transmuted now. And I know it's intense, right? That this is why these triggers are here, to help us. Doesn't always feel like it. I get it. I will do another episode on how to clear this stuff quickly. So I hope you get that. That's why you are never wrong and you're not bad. And that's an old game that's coming to an end. You are brilliant, beautiful light, reclaiming and remembering that from within yourself and with the help of others and the physical world as well. The intelligence is everywhere, infinite, omnipresent, and it's there and available for us, right? So we just do our best to use it. All right, I'll do part 3 on this. I wasn't expecting to do that, but I see how that's needed and required. Okay, so I'm sending you so much love. I hope this has been helpful. And by the way, if you want to do more work with me on this, please join us for the DNA activations. The next one coming up is on August 8th, the Lion's Gate. It's going to be very powerful and awesome. And all of our remembrance is stored in our DNA. That's why that's such an important part of the journey of awakening, because as the divinity from within is awakened, which is stored in our DNA and waiting to be activated, and even all of the DNA that's just dormant, waiting to reclaim and restore our divine potential, as that comes in, there are fewer and fewer triggers, more greater divine alignment, more gifts, talents, and abilities awakening, more of our greatest potential is revealed to ourselves, more of the light, the brilliance, and the magnificence that is within us is revealed, and more of our own innate ability to resolve a lot of this stuff organically and, yes, effortlessly in many cases. That's in there too. So the DNA activations, the next one is on August 8th. And of course, you can register and join us at lorispagna.com under the live events tab. And if you are looking at that and there's a replay, which there really won't be a big window because the next one is the triple portal. We're in a mega portal window now. By the way, I just released a video on YouTube that's not on the podcast, on my YouTube channel, about the massive portal window this year we're already in, right? Started on July 8th as I'm recording this. So I'm ahead of time on you as I'm recording this, and is going to continue even past the 999 triple portal. That will be explained on the YouTube channel. I don't really think I'll be able to get that in here, although maybe I'll find time to do a video on that, a podcast on that as well. But there's a lot of stuff on my YouTube channel that isn't on the podcast, although replays from the podcast do get on the YouTube channel as well. So if you miss something, you can always find it there as well. All right, I hope this has been helpful. Please let me know what you want to hear more about and learn more about. I do get emails from people asking for me to address topics, and I have been doing that. There's an upcoming episode I'm going to do about Mother Earth's agenda in her role in God's plan of light of creation and what she's asking for. And that will be a channeled episode coming up. So be on the lookout for that as well. That's in response to somebody's inquiry, somebody who wrote to me and asked for more information about that. So I think you'll really enjoy and benefit from that, because it's about what's going on Earth, a lot of the changes we're seeing. So that's an episode yet to come. All right. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I'm sending you so much love. I hope this has been helpful to you. Until next time, farewell for now. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening today. If you loved the show and if you benefited in any way, if it helped you to up-level or expand your consciousness, if you gained any new insights or ideas, if it made you think or become more aware, or if there were some strategies or intuition that you may have benefited from in any way, would you please do me 2 easy and simple favors? First, if you would be willing to leave a review, it would mean the world to me. I'd be so grateful. And second, if you're willing to share this show with anyone else who would benefit, you can either post it on your social media or just email it to someone and share it with another person or any other people. It would be so awesome. This kind of thing is so helpful in expanding consciousness on the planet and helping others to benefit from this kind of teaching, which just simply isn't generally readily available in the mainstream. So sharing it really helps others benefit and helps our planet evolve and awaken. Plus, expressing gratitude and generosity in this way will also expand your capacity to give and receive even more. Either way, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for participating and for sharing, and overall, just for being the magnificent, the spectacular, the brilliant, the fabulous, the wonderful you that you truly are, and for allowing yourself to be the very best version of you today and every day. All my love and gratitude to you.